I will say this building was not built for the kind of noise a CrossFit gym makes. So we were not terribly popular with the residents in that building. And I didn't blame them. Weights dropping at 5 a.m. in the morning, that kind of thing, the whole building would shake. And so I knew this was a very short-term kind of deal. So even once we opened in that spot, I liked the general area, but I knew we needed a new spot. And so we found a bigger location just about a year later that we moved into. And then we were in that for a little over 2 years. And again, I had a lease, 5-year lease. I was about 2.5 years into it. My landlord got an offer from a bank, and I get it. They were going to pay him like 3 times as much. And he was like, get out. And I talked to an attorney, and the landlord is a wealthy business guy in town. And I get his business decision on that. And they were like, you need to get out while you have the chance. And at that point, what I did for finding our current location, I literally made a grid. I took a map and I made a grid of all of Southtown, and I would drive it. I would drive all the roads. And if there was an empty lot or an empty building, whether it was for sale or rent or not, I would look up on the county website who the owner of it was. And I would contact them and I would talk to them about whether they would sell it and or rent it. And I went through every location. And in fact, the one we have was owned by Union Pacific Railroad. It wasn't even a lot. I would talk to realtors and other people, and they're like, well, you can't even buy that. The railroad owns it. And I'm like, but man, it's like almost a half an acre in the city. Like, where are you going to find that? And I was desperate. I'll be honest. I was very desperate. So I was like, what do I got to lose? So I called, went on the website, looked up Union Pacific, was sifting through their website, called a bunch of numbers. Eventually I got to Rebecca Hoffman in Nebraska, who handles the real estate for Union Pacific in Texas. And she had to look it up on Google Earth. And she's like, you're right. I don't think we're using that lot. But she's like, Union Pacific is like a government. This has to pass through like 13 different committees for us to sign off on selling it. And I'm like, well, if you wouldn't mind starting that process, I've got nothing to lose.
Entrepreneurs, we were back and we had a lot of fun behind the scenes talking a little football. We'll learn all about his journey today, bouncing from Texas to Chicago and back. I naturally had to ask about football team loyalty. You see the hat here with the Jets. He's bringing his Cowboy fanhood, but he's also bringing a whole lot of entrepreneurship experience where Dan is a kingpin out there in Texas in the gym-based game, excuse me. Dan, thanks so much for taking the time to join That Entrepreneur Show.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited to hear this whole story here, branching over the years that you've done it and done it again. You earned your CrossFit certification back in 2008 and has participated in the CrossFit Open for 13 years in a row. Before we talk about the business side of things, tell me about this competition. What do you love most about it? What do you hate most about it? I'm sure it takes a huge toll on you.
Well, it is. I love it in the sense that, so yeah, CrossFit does this worldwide competition every year. And it's just, I call it like a physical, just a yearly physical. Like you get your blood work done, something like that. It gives me a good black and white, just cold hard test of where I'm at in my physical capability. And as I've gotten older, having been doing this now from when I was in my 30s to now, I'll turn 50 next year. And in each age group, once you get past 40, there's the 40 to 44 age group and the 45 to 49. So this was my last year in the 45 to 49 age group. And you get to see where you stack up worldwide against other people your age. And just also historically speaking, how I stack up against myself. And I love the test that provides. It has provided me with some of my most biggest fails in life when things don't go the way I wanted to on those workouts. It's very unforgiving. But I love the consistency of it. I love the challenge of it. It makes getting older actually a lot of fun. I will say it makes one of those things that I'm pretty stoked to turn 50 next year, because then I'll be the young buck in that age group. And I'm looking forward to being one of the old guys. And so I find the whole thing, it is every year when I'm talking to members, there's a lot of reasons why I don't want to do it. And that's exactly why I do it every year, is because there's a million different reasons why, I don't need this additional stress, or why am I bothering with this? But I come out of it every year really glad I did, no matter what the result was. I'm just glad I kind of faced the challenge of it.
And it definitely puts you in that mindset of, okay, I did something, I didn't want to do something challenging. I can also do this next challenging task, and so on and so forth. You mentioned other things, consistency, practicing every day, all of these things. they're tailored right around entrepreneurship. They're the same thing. What is one of your bigger lessons from the CrossFit experiences that trickle over into your business?
Well, that's just it. It is CrossFit on a daily basis. When I go to workout, I do stuff. It is not, it is very common that I am nervous before the workout because I
Right.
know it's going to suck, frankly. It's going to be hard. And doing that and seeking that out in what I would call a somewhat trivial sense of this is a physical setting, nothing really big is going to happen if I don't do well or anything like that. But seeking that out daily, I think makes myself you're mentally stronger, emotionally stronger. You come up against your limits in that way, and it lets you not be afraid to come up against your limits in other ways, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and these other things. And that builds, I think, a quiet confidence. It's not a false confidence. You know that you are limited and finite. At the same time, you know you're very capable and can overcome hard things. And it builds that kind of just nothing to prove kind of confidence, but you're also not afraid to take on any task. And in the entrepreneurial world, where there is no safety net, there's no safety net underneath us. No matter how long I've been doing this, the rug can get pulled out at any time. Living with that kind of level of risk and not being a nervous wreck over it is, I think, something I know it took a lot of getting used to for me
Oh,
personally to
yeah.
get used to.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's hard for people to understand that haven't gone down that road of there is no 401k out there, insurance that I didn't pay for. All of this is coming from me. And if, the bills don't get paid, the employees don't get paid, any of that, it's all coming back to me. And I love the freedom of that and the responsibility, but you got to be willing to take on things you don't feel comfortable with and hard things all the time, things I don't understand or don't feel qualified for in the business setting. And so I'll say, I think doing that in a physical way is a good way to practice that constantly. So I'm more ready for it in that realm.
Very well said all the way around. It's not meant for everyone, entrepreneurship. That's why I
No.
always stress more on a mental health break. What works for some doesn't work for everyone. Entrepreneurship is not something that's for everyone because you're working more hours than you would at another job. You're not getting a secure paycheck. And now I've had the wonderful opportunity of paying my employees my last dollars to make sure they're paid on time when
Yep.
I'm down to my, and the ups and downs in entrepreneurship. You're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. Part of the game, but that level of risk, it did take some getting used to for me as well. But without any further ado, I want to show some love to your business while you're on the show today. You've been working on it for 11 years. You've had news outlets, Ken's Five, San Antonio Report show you love too. I know news outlets aren't knocking on your door in the beginning looking to show love on a business. Let's talk about some of those growing pains that you can maybe share some lessons with that helped you get to this elite status in your field.
So, yeah, as you had mentioned earlier on, consistency is a big thing, both, in the training realm, just continuing to work out. And in this realm, rain or shine, day or night, the gym, now we're about to come up on our 12-year anniversary, and people know reliably the gym's open, regardless of whatever classes are running, no matter what's been going on. We're performing workouts, and at a high level, they're getting a high level of customer service. I always say I want this hour to be the best hour of their day, and that has to happen when it's sexy and when it's not, when I'm feeling it and when it's not. Like, that just has to be the base level standard. And yeah, I think over time, that consistency is the most powerful thing. That then through word of mouth here in town, San Antonio is a big city, but I will say it starts to feel like a small town because people start to hear about you, and either they hear good things or they hear bad things. And when it's working, it's because they're hearing good things about what's going on there. It's from satisfied customers that we're getting their money's worth out of what they're getting, that are saying this place has changed my life. And that spreads. And yeah, that's how I end up on Ken's Five, is strictly word of mouth. Friend of a friend of a friend talked about this. This is awesome. I end up talking to somebody Roma, who's on that show. And she's like, we'd love to have you on. Things go okay. And now I've been on it 3 times, scheduled to go on again. And you're right. When I grand opened the gym, it was myself and my wife, my parents and my in-laws came through. I think we had like 2 people show up. It was not a big production. And yet here we are, almost 12 years later. And yeah, I was like, we're getting somewhere. We're on the right path.
The show notes, I just got a lot of great stuff there. Making his clients' sessions the best hour of their day. I freaking love that. I love the commitment to just making sure that you're serving your people. You're not just a vendor who's looking for money like many businesses out there. I try to do the same and let the clients know how much they're appreciated. The power of word to mouth. I mean, that's the best form of advertising, just the hardest to get. Seems like you're
Yep.
thriving with it. And the
Yep.
last piece right here, thank you for sharing your vulnerable moment where, hey, we had 2 people at our opening. Everyone
Yeah.
out there, it doesn't matter where the beginning is. Go to my early podcast episodes, have a laugh at my expense. I sound robotic, structured. I hate the way I sound, but you got to start somewhere. If he didn't have that initial launch, it wouldn't have led to him eventually getting some news coverage and doing great things.
That's just it. You have to believe in yourself when no one else does. And that's tough. But like, even we had, this is another story, but we'd gotten kicked out of our location. The landlord had gotten an offer from a bank that was going to pay him a lot more. I get it. We're traveling around. I ended up building the building we're in now. I am not a general contractor. I don't know what I'm doing, but I had to act as one for about 2 years. And during that process, like, I knew we were a long shot. We were very much most likely not going to succeed. And a lot of people were rooting for us, but it would have been the smart bet to bet against us, just to be honest, playing the statistical odds.
Right.
I had to go through that I had to believe that I could get this done when, for good reason, probably nobody else did. And so, yeah, you have to come from those very humble beginnings regardless. And I think that is what so much more guarantees your success, because you did come from that start.
The rocky road, it all
Yes.
again serves for staying humble. It serves for all of those lessons, and you've continued to apply those lessons. Now, walk us through this. Do you have one central location, or how does this look?
Yeah. So I do have one gym. I'm not saying I'll never have another, but I kind of just like having one, because with
Yeah,
CrossFit, it's so much built on community and the
I like
environment,
that.
the family, the friendships that you have, that I think makes this, people will work out this way when they don't like to work out in general, which a lot of people don't. I get it. But because of the community aspect, the relational aspect, they'll still come because they're seeing their friends, because they're connected to something. And so because of that, like you said, I work more now than I ever have when I was not working for myself. And I love it. And the nice thing is with this, I get to see my wife and daughter at the gym. My wife's a coach. My daughter comes in. So even though I'm gone a lot, I still get to see my family. That's one
That's
of the
awesome.
perks of it. But yeah, this is the people I see. These are the people I see at the gym. This is my friendship group. This is my social group. And they stay connected to that as well. And it makes them so much a part of not just, it's not just a facility I go into. It is much more, it's like a tribe you identify with almost.
I love that. Creating a family in a way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it really is.
Well, that's great. I have to also ask, have there been people with you since you're open, still with you 12 years later? Are they still living in the area?
Yes, I have quite a few actually. I would say so.
Let's do some shout outs. Let's show some love.
Yeah, so I will say, okay, so there's Wendy, Michael Taylor, Barbara. These are all people that have been there since the inception. Selena was our very first member. Now, Selena, about a year ago, moved to Pittsburgh, but she was with us the whole time. She was the first member that had signed up, and until her husband got a job in Pittsburgh, she was still with us through the whole time. And so it's really awesome that even during that
Yeah.
first year, so I will say, in that first year of existence, we probably still have 160 members at the gym. I say we have 50 that have been with us since that first year of existence. If they live in the area, they're still with us.
That's absolutely amazing. Congratulations on being able to do all that. I know it's not easy. I love how you're hiding here in the notes why building a meaningful community means less locations. And I think you hit that perfectly. Other than the value you add with your physical craft in the gym as a trainer, as a facility, what are some other things you do to create that family atmosphere, excuse me, that you've been describing?
Well, you have to show, by nature, people will be able to tell if I really do care. And it's in little things. By being insightful, I see, there's people I see in the morning every day, and they come in at 5:30. I see them, and you get a feel for, if I'm being insightful and present and attentive, then I can tell when somebody's having not as good a day, not their normal bubbly self, somewhat, quiet, something like that. And I will seek them out and, hey, what's going on? And right now, right before we met, was having coffee with a member. And that is something I do several times a week when there's not really a purpose other than let's talk about life. Let's see what's going on. And it I'm in the right job because I really enjoy it and I do care and I find it very fulfilling. And on their side too, they can tell that I'm trying to do everything I can to help them down this path of physical fitness. And it's, my members know they can text me morning, noon, or night. And even if I don't respond right away, I'm going to get back to them. And they can tell that I'm doing the best I can to provide them the best service I can as much as possible. And I'm not perfect, I'm human. But I even think that human part is very endearing when they can tell, while imperfect, that they can tell what my intentions are and they can tell they're in the right place.
You're sending so many great messages along to our audience. Thank you for this. But I want to go back in time for a sec. Was opening a gym always the plan? I know you went to Chicago for a bit. When did the idea
Good
plant?
question.
Yeah,
Good question. So I've always enjoyed working out.
right.
And I went when I went to Chicago, I studied sports medicine at school. At the time, I thought I would be work with a sports team or be a personal trainer, something along those lines. And I started working as a personal trainer right after college. So long story, got sidetracked, ended up working at the Board of Options in Chicago as a trader for 5 years. And while that was a cool experience, I hated it. And got back into training when I was 28 after doing that for a few years. And again, 49 now. So I was training at a Lifetime, and up there I trained at MBS. There was a couple different gyms, MBS Fitness. There was a couple other ones up there, but I was working at a Lifetime at the time. And that's when, going back to the beginning, started following CrossFit, the main site, started doing the workouts. I thought I was fit and I started doing these workouts and I realized I was not as fit as I thought and really liked the hardness of it. Went to San Diego, got certified. And as soon as I went, there was something very organic and authentic about these people and what they were doing. And I knew at that point, so this is 2007, 2008, I knew at that point I will own a CrossFit gym. And because it was so much more real and what I wanted. And in the corporate world, and it's not making it evil, there's just a different set of motivations in a big corporate setting like that. And I could carve out my little niche and be friends with people and give a sincere service, but there was still a lot of being pulled in other directions that I found very disillusioning. And I knew in this setting, I could still, frankly, make a living and pay the bills doing something I really believed in and could show that I didn't have to put on a facade. So that's 2007, 2008. I knew I wanted to get back to Texas. I like warm weather. I like it being hot, to be frank. And so I wanted to get back here to open a gym and met my girlfriend, then my fiance, my wife Janelle up there. We moved down here in 2011 and knew that was the plan to open a gym. But I worked for Lifetime for another year, getting to know San Antonio and getting to know the area until I found a spot where I thought there was opportunity and I found a space to rent. And so, yeah, when, moved here in 2011, ended up opening the gym actually in like January of 2013. So It was a little more than a year by the time the doors opened, but it was like from a 2008 to 2013, this 5-year plan to get down here and then to open a gym. And so that's how that progress went.
You did it. I'm going to ask you a question you may not think is coming. Something that's not talked about is finding the location for your physical property, finding all the ups and downs in the real estate. How was that journey finding the right location?
So, yeah, you're right. There's no one tells you so I was I will say it was a haphazard process for me. I was learning as I went. So I knew where CrossFit gyms were in town. Most of them, just without getting too far, but the demographics of San Antonio were on the north side of town. And as I was getting to know town, I knew there was opportunity. There weren't any CrossFit gyms kind of once you got south of the Alamo, just a little bit on the south side of downtown. Part of that was it was hard to find a space. And then two, there just wasn't quite the clientele down there that made it as easy to do. So found a spot that was it was a old hospital building that had been converted into condos and rented out one of the floor level condos, 1,000 square feet, like not big at all, and turned that into a little gym and was in that space for a little over a year. I will say this building was not built for the kind of noise a CrossFit gym makes. So we were not terribly popular with the residents in that building. And I didn't blame them. Weights dropping at 5 a.m. in the morning, that kind of thing, the whole building would shake. And so I knew this was a very short-term kind of deal. So even once we opened in that spot, I liked the general area, but I knew we needed a new spot. And so we found a bigger location just about a year later that we moved into. And then we were in that for a little over 2 years. And again, I had a lease, 5-year lease. I was about 2.5 years into it. My landlord got an offer from a bank, and I get it. They were going to pay him like 3 times as much. And he was like, get out. And I talked to an attorney, and the landlord is a wealthy business guy in town. And I get his business decision on that. And they were like, you need to get out while you have the chance. And at that point, what I did for finding our current location, I literally made a grid. I took a map and I made a grid of all of Southtown, and I would drive it. I would drive all the roads. And if there was an empty lot or an empty building, whether it was for sale or rent or not, I would look up on the county website who the owner of it was. And I would contact them and I would talk to them about whether they would sell it and or rent it. And I went through every location. And in fact, the one we have was owned by Union Pacific Railroad. It wasn't even a lot. I would talk to realtors and other people, and they're like, well, you can't even buy that. The railroad owns it. I'm like, but man, it's like almost a half an acre in the city. Like, where are you going to find that? And I was desperate. I'll be honest. I was very desperate. So I was like, what do I got to lose? So I called, went on the website, looked up Union Pacific, was sifting through their website, called a bunch of numbers. Eventually I got to Rebecca Hoffman in Nebraska, who handles the real estate for Union Pacific in Texas. And she had to look it up on Google Earth. And she's like, you're right. I don't think we're using that lot. But she's like, Union Pacific is like a government. This has to pass through like 13 different committees for us to sign off on selling it. And I'm like, well, if you wouldn't mind starting that process, I've got nothing to lose. So that was in, let me think here, 2016 in June. So January 2017, it was right around Christmas. Nice Christmas present. She emails me, yep, we'll sell it. What do you want to buy it for? And that was the beautiful thing is Union Pacific didn't really care once they decided to sell it, what they paid. So I got an incredible deal on the land. I'm not going to lie. It was amazing. And right after I bought it, that area got so hot. So like it was, you have to get lucky along the way too. You got to make your opportunities and then you got to get lucky too. And so it was a combination of me seeking this out, and boy, was the timing right on how that worked out.
Well, the lesson there, everyone, doing the due diligence, doing the work, finding the location, driving around, those are the little things that people don't want to do to make it happen. It's not as easy as just calling a realtor, going to a listing and finding your spot to rent. He just shared it's going to take a little bit of perseverance on that end too. A little bit of commitment's been the highlight of the whole show. So you'll be at this location now through the business's end. This is it.
Yes, this is it. This is where we will be forever. And I plan on doing this for a long time still, as long as I'm physically able. As I said, we're coming up on 12 years, and I would say I am more in love with what I do now than when I started. Like I appreciate it so much that this is how I get to spend my days. So yeah, I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. I will keep doing this for as long as I can.
Well, I can certainly see the passion. Everyone else out there, whether you're listening or you're viewing on today, you're hearing the passion too. Before I let him go, before I get his contact information, we're going to dig deep in that brain of yours. If you could choose to sit down with any entrepreneur throughout history, Daniel, can be dead or alive, to have a conversation with, who you're going with. And this could be at this point of your life or even at an earlier point of your life when you were going through all those trials and tribulations. What's one entrepreneur you would choose to have their help?
Man, so that's a wonderful question. I actually think this is a little offbeat. I would call him an entrepreneur because of how he did it later in life. But there's an author named Louis L'Amour. He wrote like pulp Western books that they're all 150 pages, 200 pages long, and then turned it into a just whole empire he had because he wrote like, I don't know, 300 of them. And from the time I was like 10 years old to probably 17, I read all of them. And there was he had worked a ton of jobs. He didn't become an author till he was, I think, around 50. And then he just wrote nonstop. But he had worked a lot of different jobs himself, a lot of odd jobs, traveled the world in different jobs. And he has said it was through that experience that it helped him know what he wanted to do and give him the fuel for all his stories. And I will say the same is that, we've scratched the surface here, but with so many adventures in life and seeking things out and trying hard things, it crystallizes for me like who I am and what my purpose is. And I don't question it because I've done enough stuff to know like this is where I'm best suited. This is what I'm doing. And so I would love, yes, it would be a dream come true to have gotten a chance to sit down with Louis L'Amour and just pick his brain over dinner for a night. That would have been amazing.
Certainly an entrepreneur. You got to look at how the brand he built just evolved. I mean, writing 300 books,
Yeah.
That's something. But thank you for that choice. Let's delve a step deeper. Where would the meeting go down if you could pick that too?
Oh man. There's a couple of really good little tequila bars here in San Antonio. And so I'd find a nice little quiet tequila bar. We cut over a couple of tequilas on the rocks. I think we would be able to keep our minds limber and have a nice open conversation. That's how I would enjoy that.
I love him. Bring him out to San Antonio, show him around, let him
Yeah.
feel like he's at home. Thanks so much for taking the
Yes.
time today, Daniel. This was a lot of fun. I had a great time connecting. Now, where can we find you online? Where can our audience say hello?
So yeah, on Instagram, King William District CrossFit. We are in the King William District here in San Antonio. You can go to our website, kingwilliamdistrictcrossfit.com. It's all one word. My number, 312-927-9575. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. I will bore you to tears talking about the business or talking about CrossFit. I love talking about it with anybody that is interested. So any of those avenues are ways to get a hold of us.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing all that. And everyone out there, be sure to reach out to him, especially if you're in the San Antonio area, whether you are already
Yes.
doing CrossFit, excuse me, or
No problem.
this inspired you so much to get involved, go reach out to him and say hello. The show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all podcast platforms, all social media platforms, except on YouTube. I'm at Vincent Day Lancy. You can find the That Entrepreneurs channel there. Be sure to subscribe there to see video clips like this a few weeks after the show goes live. But with that, we're signing off today from Florida all the way to Texas. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.